So my name is Catalina Covacevich. I work for the OECD, and I'm going to be presenting about the Pisa 2025 Foreign Language Assessment. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pisa in general, and then I'm going to describe specifically elements about the Pisa Foreign Language Assessment. So Pisa has been developed and is implemented by the OECD. The OECD is an international organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and we work to build better policies for better lives. Our goal is to shape policies that will foster prosperity, equality, opportunity, and well-being. And we work in many different sectors, including topics such as health, for example, taxes, but also education. And that's where Pisa comes in. And I work for the Directorate of Education and Skills. My background is mostly large-scale educational assessments in school settings. So my original background wasn't in foreign language assessment, but I've been working on the foreign language assessment since 2018. And I've been working at the OECD since 2016. I'm going to share with you some key features of Pisa. Most of them apply to all cycles of Pisa. Some are specific to Pisa 2025. So Pisa stands for the Program for International Student Assessment. And it's important to highlight that this is an assessment of educational systems. So we're not focusing here on the results of individual students. We don't produce results for individual students. We don't produce results for individual schools either. Our focus is on the whole educational system, that in most cases is at the country level. In some cases, it's other levels, states that participate, economies that participate, but always the system level. Pisa 2025 will be the 9th version of Pisa. We have been conducting it every 3 years since the year 2000. The only time in which we actually had one 4-year cycle was due to COVID. So Pisa 2021 had to become Pisa 2022, basically because all the schools were closed and we couldn't assess the students. We test a sample of 15-year-old students in grade 7 and above. The sentence actually has a lot of information in it. So the first thing is that we test a sample of students. We don't test every single student in a participating country or economy, but a sample. And the sample is representative and it's chosen by us. So it's not like countries can choose their sample and bias the results in that way. We focus on 15-year-old students. This is also relevant because in some countries, all 15-year-olds are in school. So basically, it's the same thing to say 15-year-old students or 15-year-olds. But in other countries, that's not really the case. You can have maybe only 70%, maybe even 60% of your 15-year-olds that are still in school. So we focus on those who are in the school system still at age 15. We also focus only on those who are in grade 7 and above. So this means that if we have a 15-year-old student in grade 4, for example, that student would not be considered, but any student in grade 7 or above is considered. So we're not a grade-based assessment. We don't care if they're in grade 8, 9, 10, 11, as long as they're 15-year-olds, they're included in the assessment. In terms of how many countries participate, we are expecting around 90 countries and economies in this cycle in 2025. I think the latest count is actually 92, but it's around 90. In terms of the content, every cycle we assess science, reading, and maths. We have been doing this since the year 2000. And we have one domain that we call the main domain. That is the one we focus on most. So we have longer tests. We focus the questionnaires on that domain. We elaborate a lot on the background factors. We report results by subscales. We really focus on that domain. And the focus domain that we will have for Pisa 2025 is science. But we will still be assessing reading and we will still be assessing maths. We also have other tests. So it's not just about science, reading, and maths. We also have something that we call the innovative domain that, as the name indicates, looks to go beyond the traditional school domains of science, reading, and maths. And for Pisa 2025, it's going to be learning in the digital world. In the past, we have had others, such as collaborative problem solving or creative thinking. And we also have other tests that are called optional. The one we have offered in the last cycles has been financial literacy. And now, for the very first time, we'll be offering English as a foreign language. And optional means that each country can decide if they want to take it or not. Also, in terms of the content, this assessment focuses on whether students can apply their knowledge to new situations in real-life context. So it's not about theoretical knowledge. It's not declarative knowledge. It's not, can you list this and this scientific concept, for example. It's really about students being able to apply their knowledge. And in addition to the tests, we have many, many questionnaires, because one goal of PISA is to be able to describe the performance of students, but another goal is to be able to understand the performance. What is it associated with? And to be able to do that, we need to collect a lot of contextual data. So we ask every student who sits a PISA test to also answer a questionnaire about their background, their well-being, their learning strategies and motivation, for example. School principals also fill in a questionnaire about their school. System leaders at the system level, they also fill in a questionnaire about system level policies, for example, teacher training policies or things that have to do with curriculum. And in addition, we have two other questionnaires that are voluntary for countries, one that is for teachers and one that is for parents. So we use then all this information to really contextualize our results. Also, I don't have a slide about this, but in terms of the logistics of PISA, this is coordinated centrally by the OECD. And we have what we refer to as contractors that are very specialized institutions that coordinate the data collection and they develop the instruments. For the PISA 2022 cycle, this coordinating entity was ETS in the US. For PISA 2025, it's ACER in Australia. We also have another contractor that specializes in sampling, other contractors that develop the frameworks. So this is all coordinated centrally. But the actual data collection is done by countries. And this is really important for when I tell you about the foreign language assessment, because this means that the assessment doesn't happen in assessment centers. This happens in the schools, in the classrooms. So a test administrator has to go to the school, has to find the students that have been selected to sit the test. They have to be in a separate classroom. And those are the testing conditions, just so you can imagine the testing conditions. And in most cases, this is a computer-based test. We have very, very few countries that still do it on paper, but they're normally new countries. And the foreign language assessment will only be available for those countries that are doing this as a computer-based assessment. This is a list of PISA participants. This is a list of every country or economy that has ever participated in PISA. Most of them join and then continue participating in each cycle, but not necessarily. So we also have some cases of countries that participate once, then they wait for a cycle or two, and then they come back. I have put in yellow circles countries that I was told I could expect to have participants from in today's session. I don't know if that's the case, just to make it easier for you to see if your country is participating in PISA. Those countries that are in red are countries that are new to PISA 2025. So in every cycle, we have between 5 and 10 new countries. So in PISA 2022, we had around 80 participants. Now in PISA 2025, we have around 90. And they tend to be from all over the world, from across all the continents, though we do have more concentration in some continents than others. So for example, Europe is very, very, very well represented. So what do countries get from PISA? Why do they participate in PISA? And they participate for all the things you can see there, to get benchmarking, to get diagnostics, to learn about best practices, to obtain policy lessons, and to see what's going on in terms of trends. And this is perhaps the best known example of benchmarking in PISA. It's basically putting all the countries in order according to their performance. So there you can see them showing up from the best performing to the lowest performing. This is specifically maths in PISA 2018. So what countries do is they have a good overall view of where they are if they compare themselves with others. That kind of benchmarking, comparing with others. So having a good idea of where you are compared with 80 or 90 countries is interesting, but then countries tend to focus on countries that are really reference points for them. So we provide here the OECD average. That's particularly relevant for OECD countries, maybe not so much for countries that are non-OECD. So In blue, you have those that are above the OECD average. In yellow, those that are on the OECD average. And in red, those that are below the OECD average. But most countries tend to have their own reference. So maybe your neighbors, maybe countries that speak the same language, or that you have a similar cultural heritage. So you have a look at, okay, what's going on overall? And then you have a look at maybe your neighbors, where are they? You may have a look at also who has a similar performance to you. Does that make sense to you? But the idea is that this shouldn't be seen only as kind of a competition exercise. The idea is also to be able to learn from other countries. So if you have a country that's quite similar to you in everything, in your history, in the level of income, but yet the results are not so similar, you could start thinking, okay, what is it that that country does different? What could perhaps I change? What could I learn from them? And this same exercise can be done even with countries that are very, very different to you. So for example, I'm from Latin America. We look at the high performance in Asia. It's quite difficult to relate to them culturally or in many other senses, but it's still an interesting exercise to see, okay, what is it that they're doing? Is there anything out of all the things that they're doing that perhaps we could do too? Maybe some things we can't, because in our context, they wouldn't apply. But there's some things that you could explore doing. Then this is a second kind of benchmarking that isn't against others, it's against a standard. So what we also provide is a description of the percentage of students that are in each proficiency level. So for every domain, we have around 7 or 8 proficiency levels. We have a very specific description of what is it that students can do according to our framework in each of these proficiency levels. And then we provide this information to countries. So here, this is a more nuanced way of looking at the results. It's not just an average. An average doesn't really tell you anything about the content, about what students can do. This provides a really, really specific description of what students can do. I haven't shared a description today because they're very detailed, very long, in this case, very mathematics specific, but they're available if you Google them, if you want to have a look at them. So this is more interesting perhaps for policymakers. So we stop looking maybe at others, we start looking at ourselves compared with a standard. We can see where our students are. You can think about what kind of policy would you like to have. We have made a difference between level 2 and above and below level 2, because traditionally level 2 has been thought of as a minimum expected level. So perhaps a country could say, well, we should really aim at having every student at level 2. So maybe we're going to invest a lot of resources in the students that are below level 2 and try to take them up to level 2. Other countries and other situations might have a different approach. Maybe in the case of science, they say we really, really need to have scientists in the future. We need a lot of high performance in science. So our goal is actually to have a lot of students with high performance in science. So you can look at this in many, many different ways. Something that I find really interesting is that though high-performing countries tend to have a lot of high-performing students, and the opposite is true for low-performing countries, every single country has low-performing students, and every single country has high-performing students. So in a way, every country still has to make an effort towards their low-performing student. And in a way, every system is also successful with some students. This is an example of trends. So when countries participate more than once in Pisa, they can start looking at trends. What has happened to their performance over time? And if it has gone up, if it has gone down, if nothing has happened, the idea is to be able to relate this with policies that have been implemented. For example, there was this huge curriculum change, or maybe a huge change in the profile of teachers. You would expect that at some point that should start reflecting in the results. So this can help you see if the policies seem to have been effective or not. These are results from Pisa 2022. We published them in December last year. This was the COVID year, the COVID Pisa. And we saw a significant drop in maths results overall, particularly in OECD countries. This doesn't mean that this happened in every single country. There are specific countries actually that went up, but overall, as a trend, we saw that this decreased a lot. And this is quite concerning because what the data shows is that yes, this seems to be linked with COVID. The drop is very steep, but actually the tendency was present before. So there was a tendency to go down, only that the slope was softer. And between 2018 and 2022, we have this drop. This slide shows other kinds of analysis that you get from Pisa data. It's also following up on the idea that the average doesn't give you a lot of nuance. So what you can see here is performance in some countries. I don't have all the countries in this graph, according to the socioeconomic background of the students. So we have them divided by quarters. So the arrow, the red part shows the performance of the bottom quarter, the blue part, the performance of the highest quarter. So basically what this means is if you have a big arrow, you have a lot of difference in that country that relies, that is due to socioeconomic background of their students. And that also means that there's more variation in the performance of students. So ideally, you would aim to be a country with a small arrow, such as, for example, Estonia. They have a pretty small arrow compared with most of the other countries, meaning that the differences between the bottom quarter and the highest quarter of their students are smaller. There's not much variation due to socioeconomic background, but you have other examples, some of them high-performing countries, some of them average-performing countries, where actually this arrow is pretty big. In this slide, you can see the relationship between cumulated expenditure in a student at age 15 and the score in mathematics. So this slide shows that this is about money, right? It shows that money is important, that money is necessary, but also that money is not enough. And it's not the only thing that explains results. And this is really important because I think that if you look at the ranking, for example, it's easy to get a bit depressed and say, oh, we can never be like X country because look at all the money that they have. And that's true to a point in some situations. So basically, the point in which is still true is the blue line. If you're to the right of the blue line, those countries are already making a significant expenditure in their students. And what the data shows is that putting in more money is not what's going to make the difference. So from that point onwards, money isn't what isn't explaining the results. It's something else. Maybe it's the allocation of the resources, but it's not the amount of money. Well, if you look to the left, you can see that, yes, there is a clear relationship between amount of money and the results. But even in the countries on the left, you can see that there are differences in performance among countries who make the same level of investment. So yes, money is important. It has an effect, but it's not the only effect, and it doesn't necessarily determine your results. And this slide is just to show you that we also collect a lot of data on elements such as well-being. So this is aligned with what was presented earlier on. Well-being is very important, and we treat it as a result in itself. And we also associate these variables sometimes with performance. So here we were asking some questions that were specific to COVID that had to do with whether students perceived that their teachers were available when they needed help and if they felt lonely or not during COVID. And you can see that there's a lot of variation in terms of how lonely countries felt, and also quite a bit of variation in terms of how available they perceived that their teachers were. And you can also see that some high-performing countries also have students that say that the teachers were available when they needed help, but that's not necessarily the case. So when you start looking at well-being elements, it's not necessarily the students in the high-performing countries that report the most well-being. So that was an overall introduction of Pisa. And now I'm going to focus specifically on the foreign language assessment, but everything that I said up to this point applies also to the foreign language assessment. So why are we doing a foreign language assessment within Pisa? And this is because we have had continuous demand from countries to do this for quite a while. It was just very difficult to agree on how to approach it. It was not straightforward. There were a lot of decisions to be made. Pisa is financed by the countries that participate in it, and there were a lot of concerns about how expensive this would be too. How would we deal with the logistics? As I explained, this means going to schools. What are the restrictions in a setting like that, etc. But there was no doubt that this was increasingly relevant. So countries are very aware of the benefits of foreign language skills that include cognitive benefits, better intercultural understanding, better job opportunities, economic benefits for individuals and for countries, etc. And this has been reflected in the curricula in the last 2 decades. There's a strong tendency to start foreign language teaching earlier, to allocate more hours to it, etc. But today, there are no internationally comparative data collections at the school system level. So there are other kind of data. For example, there is data on students that take certification tests to apply to universities abroad. And sometimes that is used as a proxy for the level of English that comes from a school system or for the population of a country, but that's not really accurate. So what was lacking was this: okay, if we assess the school system, we don't have that. There have been experiences about that long ago. The IA did a study in the early 70s that included English and French as a foreign language, and the European Commission did a regional assessment for European countries in 2011, survey that assessed 5 languages. But today there is no assessment at the system level. This slide here shows that when we say that learning or speaking more languages is associated with better intercultural understanding, we actually have data to support this. It's not just something that people believe in blindly. So based on PISA data, we can see that students who report to speak 2 or more languages also have higher respect for people from other cultures. So these 2 variables are associated. In terms of the characteristics of the test, we had to make several decisions. The first decision was, okay, what framework are we going to use? Because PISA normally develops its own framework. We have a framework for science, for reading, for maths, for creative thinking. It's our framework. We developed it. But here we were advised by a governing board that maybe we could look at frameworks that are already out there and are already being used. And the CFR was chosen because it's widely used, not only in Europe, so this is the Common European Framework of Reference. It's used for curriculum, it's used for national assessment. It makes sense if you tell a minister, look, your students, only 10% of them are at level A2 or above. This may actually already mean something for a lot of people. But if you tell them, oh, that's a level 3 in PISA in speaking, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So we decided to align with the CFR. We will be offering it as an international option every 2 PISA cycles. And this, as well as PISA in general, but maybe even more, has been a collaborative effort. So we have been working very, very closely with the governments from the PISA countries, with their experts, to identify what are the policy questions that they wanted to answer, what were the skills that they wanted to assess, how would they want the instruments to be, the assessment to develop. We have had a lot of guidance from foreign language experts on the assessment design, both for the test and the questionnaires. We have developed the test under a partnership with Cambridge Assessment English. I'm not sure we would have been able to do it if we hadn't counted with them as a partner. And the European Commission has been providing co-funding and technical expertise since the very beginning. So these are the decisions that we made for this cycle. This doesn't mean necessarily they are the same decisions we would take in future cycles. So we're conceptualizing the foreign language assessment as a program within PISA that has a first cycle that's starting now, but the idea is to expand in the future. So this time we decided we're just starting off with 1 language because it's quite tricky to design a whole assessment for more than 1 language. And we had to choose what language did we want to go with. And we actually asked PISA countries, and English came out as the very first one. There were only, I think, 1 or 2 countries interested in assessing French right now. So we said, okay, we'll move forward with English. We had the same discussion about the skills. Ideally, we wanted to assess all skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. But logistically, it was very, very difficult. It was very expensive. It means that we didn't really have one foreign language assessment test. It was actually having 4. Then the sample needs to get bigger. Then you have difficulties getting the samples. So we decided to rank them. We asked countries to rank them. Writing came in last. So we're not doing writing now in this cycle. Reading and listening came up first, and we decided to explore speaking. Explore it because it was very difficult logistically for us to be sure that this would work in the Pisa setting. And so far it has worked, it has gone really well, but we were not sure at the beginning. So this is a spoken production test. There will be no interaction. Students will be sitting in front of a computer with a headset, with a mic. They will be asked some questions. They will be talking into the mic. Those responses will be recorded. And that has to flow in a school setting. So we have conducted a pilot to make sure this worked. We have been providing very strict guidelines about the kind of headsets that have to be used. And so far, it's working quite well. But it's still something that we're, in a way, piloting. It's the first time we ever do it. And another discussion that we had was about coding of the responses, because traditionally in PISA, every country codes the open-ended questions. They're written, though. But here, it was a lot more sophisticated. These are speaking responses that require coders to have a very good level of English, a very good knowledge of the CFR. Countries were concerned they didn't have the technical capacity, and there's also a huge concern about the comparability of the results. And luckily, Cambridge accepted to do the coding themselves. So I can breathe now. I know that it will be done under the best standards, and the results will be comparable. So this will be coded by humans, and these humans are working for Cambridge Assessment English. And we will also assess reading in the language of instruction, because we want to be able to make some comparisons between reading in English as a foreign language and reading in the language of instruction of the students, to be able to isolate to what extent are we measuring reading as kind of a pure concept regardless of the language, or is it really reading in a specific language? So the idea would be then to expand this assessment to other languages and to other skills in future cycles, but not in this one. I have already told you about the questionnaires. So for each of the questionnaires that we have in PISA, we have added one module that is specific about the teaching and learning of English as a foreign language. So specific questions about this for students, for the school principals, at the system level, and for those countries that are taking it, also for the parent and the teacher questionnaire. In the case of the teacher questionnaire, this is a specific module only for teachers who teach English as a foreign language. And we are asking about the factors that influence foreign language both inside and outside of school, because while you can argue that in any kind of learning, it's never only the school that's influencing it, we know that for learning foreign languages, the influence is even bigger than for maths, for example. English is happening outside the classroom. And in countries we're a bit concerned that they would be compared with other countries where English is happening a lot more outside the classroom than in their own country. So we really want to be able to isolate those elements and be able to describe them when we describe the results. These are the countries that are participating in the assessment. It's quite a good number for an option in PISA. We're very happy with the number. We're also quite happy with the diversity of countries, because even though most of them are from Europe, we also have several countries that are not from Europe. And this means that the analysis that we can conduct will be richer, because when you have countries that are too similar, sometimes there are variables that don't seem to make a difference, but just because they are too similar in those countries, not because a variable doesn't really make a difference. And this is what countries will get from participating in the FLA. So it's basically what I have already described countries get from participating in PISA in general, only specifically for the FLA. So they will get internationally comparable results on a PISA scale. They will get a score that we will be able to put on a ranking, but they will also get the percentage of students in each proficiency level. And these proficiency levels will be according to the CFR scale. So what percentage of your students are in A1, A2, B1, B2, C1. We will stop at C1. We will not go up to C2. And in the future, if countries participate again, we will be able to offer trend data. We will be able to offer national diagnostics in terms of the strengths and weaknesses in the mastery of foreign languages, achievement gaps and variations, for example, between the boys and girls, in the case of English, between rural and urban settings, that could be expected to be a very important variable, etc. And also look at the relationship between language skills and the context and exposure to foreign languages in the local setting. And the ultimate goal then is with Pisa, it would be to be able to identify best practices worldwide, teaching practices, curriculum practices, use of resources on language learning, and that this could help guide policy decisions and ultimately could inform and improve language teaching and learning in the school systems. Not only in those that participated in Pisa, but also in others that can just read the results and learn anyway. Thank you. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Catalina. I think we've got some questions posted in the Q&A box. Do you have access to that, or do you want me to read that out?
Yes, I have access now. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, so the first question is, what are the benefits for low-performing countries to be compared with others well known for their performance in English teaching learning? So we get this question a lot, also from the countries that are participating. And I think that the response is what I've been trying to emphasize about the ranking. If PISA were just about the ranking, there's no point. You know where you're going to be in the ranking. I'm from Latin America. I can guess where my country would be if I compare it with countries from Europe, because we don't really have the need to speak English as much. You can live in Latin America quite happily only with Spanish. You don't have a lot of English going on around you, even though maybe you use it for the internet, maybe to study, but you can live without it. You can read without it. You can watch soap operas from other countries without it. So we know that's a huge element. So the idea is more about what you can learn from what they're doing. For example, is it because we would be able to isolate, ideally, the external factors? And maybe there's some things that have to do with external factors that there's nothing you can do about. But maybe there are a lot of things related with curriculum or with teacher training. So I would expect, for example, that if we have enough diversity in the countries, you will find that if teachers actually speak English, that would make a huge difference. And then I know that's not groundbreaking news, but it's something that ministries could then use as an argument and say, look, my teachers don't speak English. Their level of English is not good enough. The data shows that if your teachers don't speak English, this is not going to happen. We need to get more money for this. And then maybe they can go to the Ministry of Finance or to whatever entity it is and try to get that funding. So that's the kind of comparison that could be useful. They can also learn other things that maybe don't require funding. Maybe they just require a different approach. Maybe they're classroom practices that should be done differently. We are also expecting to provide results for the 3 skills: speaking, listening, and reading. So we also expect that that's not going to be the same in all countries. So maybe you can see, oh, look, this country is looking really well in speaking. That's weird. Why are they doing so well in speaking if they're a country that's similar to me, perhaps? What is it that they seem to be doing specifically with speaking? So that's a kind of lesson that countries would hope to get. But they have told us also that the ranking is less relevant for this assessment than for other domains. Like no country would join here, no low-performing country would join here for the ranking alone. So about the speaking test, well, I think I already described it a bit. It's in a computer, that there are no other people involved. It has normally 4 parts in which students are presented to different stimuli and they have to speak up. It's not an adaptive test, so the reading and listening tests are adaptive. The speaking one is not, and that means that it's the same question for everyone, and that the question is open enough to elicit responses from students that are in different levels. So for example, there's some pictures and the student is asked what's happening in those pictures. Can she or he describe what's going on in the pictures? And that is something that you should be able to do regardless of your level, though the response you would provide if you were an A1 would be probably very basic, no use of past or future tenses, very simple vocabulary, but something that describes what's going on. And someone with a very high level would be able to provide a beautiful description of what's going on in the picture, for example. It's a short test. I don't remember the exact length. I think it's 20 minutes. So it's not something that's very stressful for students. We also piloted how did students feel about this? We were very concerned that they may have a bad time, particularly if their English level is too low, that they may get embarrassed and they wouldn't want to say anything. Overall, the pilot worked okay. We did get some cases where students were speaking very low. We don't know if it's because they didn't want to interrupt others or they were just embarrassed to be heard. And that's something that we're addressing now. We're encouraging them to speak up. We have recommended seating arrangements where they don't actually see another student, so you don't feel like this pressure, because it can be super weird to be suddenly speaking in English next to your classmates at school. Then the next question. I'm not going to read out the whole question because it's quite long, but can other people see it? Can everybody see the questions, or do I need to read them out? Okay. Yes, we do have the intent to be more holistic. So when we started off with math, science, and reading, and we have been expanding, for example, creative thinking is not something that you would necessarily expect to be linked with countries that have more resources or not. English learning, probably it is linked with that, but it's particularly relevant for countries where English is not spoken, but yet they have to be competitive. So in a way, it is thinking of them too when we add this kind of assessment. We also take into account the non-cognitive factors, so a lot of elements related with well-being, and there we find that they're not necessarily linked with the resources of a country either. Yeah, so that would be the response. Also, the traditional things that we assess are assumed to be skills that are necessary. So, for example, reading, that would be an immediate need in any country if you want to be competitive as a worker, for example, when most settings, I mean, there are very few settings where being able to read wouldn't be necessary, it wouldn't give you an additional edge. So we chose the CFR because it was the framework that is most commonly used. And it's a framework that has been widely used to develop tests also. So we already had the experience of assessments being built to fit that test, because otherwise we would have had to design a framework and then build a test to align with our own framework. While there was already a framework out there that worked, that was widely used, that countries are using in their national assessments as a reference, that they're using to set goals in their national curriculums. So it was chosen because it already made sense and it has been widely tested already. And some of the advice we received from our governing board was that we shouldn't try to get super creative here because there's been a lot of work done already. So more than aiming at the Pisa version of what speaking in English as a foreign language is, they said, okay, you can just go with what is a common view on what speaking in English as a foreign language is, because this assessment is innovative enough for us without us adding additional complexities to it. And there's already so much expertise that has been invested in the CFR that it was deemed that trying to do something equivalent for PISA with less resources would probably not be good enough, or not as good. So yes, we did pilot the speaking component of the test. I already addressed that. We were very worried that we would actually get good enough recordings. So the first concern is that we get recordings, because sometimes you just get blank responses and you don't know if it's because the student didn't say anything or there was some issue that the recording wasn't recorded. And then we need the recordings to be good enough so they can actually be coded. So if you have a recording with a lot of background noise or that's kind of cut, it's not good enough. So the pilots show that we had, I think, around 95% of codable responses, and that is aligned with what is expected in this kind of situation. We do a field trial in Pisa. It's being conducted this year. And one of the things we are going to explore is exactly this. Do we get enough quality? Do we get enough recordings? And if we have issues, we can increase the sample just to make sure that we have a big enough sample and we have enough responses. Regarding the language, are we planning to test English again in the next cycle? Yes, in principle, yes. So we will do a consultation again, but based on what I have seen, on the discussions we've been having with countries, I think English is definitely happening again. And the discussion is more about, would we be adding perhaps another language? But I don't think that we would be replacing it. So the next cycle would be happening in 2033. That's when it's planned for. I did a presentation yesterday where I was asked about machine coding. This is also quite aligned with what has been discussed earlier today. Are we really using human coders, not machine coders? And yes, we really are. We discussed it a lot. There was a lot of thinking involved, and we decided to use human coders for this cycle, but I think that for next cycle, it will definitely be machine coding or some kind of combination. So our plan is to use humans to actually assign the codes that we will use, but we will be doing a lot of analysis in parallel with machine coding just to see if it would have worked, what kind of training would the machine need. We just didn't want to risk it because this was probably going to be ready on time, but we weren't sure if it was going to be ready on time. And in Pisa, you have to make the decisions a lot of time in advance. So in 2020, 2021, we had to make that decision without knowing what was the scenario going to be in 25. So we thought it was safer to stick with human coding. We were also advised in terms of perception. Teachers may not be happy if we said that speaking was coded by a machine. Again, that could have changed because perceptions towards AI are changing, but we didn't want to risk it technically or in terms of how it was perceived. So yes, it's humans this time. I think there are no other questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Catalina. Great.